Welcome to the Cat Kanavos Show on New Earth TV. Please check out and like the show Facebook page by the same name, the Cat Kanavos Show. And tonight's show will actually be posted along with the Spreaker radio link on the Facebook page. So I'm your host, Kathleen O'Keefe Kanavos, but my friends always call me Kat. And I'm also the co-author of the Amazon bestseller in pre-publication, which happened this week. Slated for April 17th release, Dreams That Can Save Your Life, written with Dr. Larry Burke, who is a radiologist at Duke University, and it's all about how dreams can save your life. And as a dream expert, my waking world is all about dreams. And this week, I actually had someone from Quora send me a question through email about a dream he had. And the dream was that his uncle had shown up in his dream and reached his arms out to him in the dream, and he wanted to know what that meant. Well, in our book, Dreams That Can Save Your Life, we had two stories about people who had uncles show up in their lives when they were in their darkest hour. One of them was actually dying, but the difference was this uncle kept running away from her because that uncle realized that if she saw his face and he had to embrace her, she might have to go with him. So if you want to see the whole answer that I gave this person, which was, if this were my dream and I were terminally ill, I would think maybe my loved one was coming to get me. But since most of the people in our dreams are aspects of ourselves, what is it about that uncle that is a reflection of you? Or it could also be what's happening in your life. What's going on that a loved one feels like they need to return and give you a big hug. So if you dream of a deceased relative, it's probably a very good thing. So talking about dreams, our guest tonight is one tough mother who went through some real waking nightmares in her life. And our guest tonight is Karen Finocchio, and she got married at a very early age, 19, and within a few years she had 4 children. And then she realized she was in this marriage that wasn't working, so she got divorced, and that's when her life really changed. So I want to bring her on because I want to get right into some really deep questions about how she turned her life around, how she met an earth angel, and about what it's like to be a child growing up in a divorced family, and does she feel she made the right choices? So welcome to the show, Karen.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kat, for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad you're back. We tried this once before, and it was one of those nights where it just wasn't working. So tonight, I just have a feeling this is going to be a great show. So let's start right in. Tell us why you decided to get married at 19 and what happened that made you get divorced within a few years.
Well, I actually come from a very small town in New Jersey, right on the New Jersey-Pennsylvania border. And it was like 2,000 people. And I had always wanted to go to college, but it just wasn't in the cards. My parents didn't have the money. So I met someone that was going into the military, and I thought, perfect way to see the world. So I married someone that I knew for a few months. We were military, and we lived all over the world. Unfortunately, he was in what they call it an MO, but he was in a job in the Army he was gone 6 to 9 months out of the year. So we really couldn't fit into a family, and I wanted a lot of kids. So I ended up having 4 kids, 3 sons and a daughter, by the time I was 28. And I actually wanted 6 sons. God knows why. I don't know what I was thinking, but I'm a sports fan, so maybe I wanted a team. But, ends up towards the end of the marriage, like he just couldn't fit into our lifestyle. He was basically single for the most part that we were together because he was gone. And the marriage became very toxic, and I wasn't going to have my children growing up like that. So one day I just packed up and left.
Mm-hmm. And you know, the guest that I had on before you was talking about sexual sovereignty and how that toxicity can really affect your children. It can really affect your life. So looking back now, getting divorced, tell us how you feel about that being the right decision for your children. Do you think it would have been better for them if you had just sucked it up and stayed the course with a marriage that was not good for you, but stayed in the marriage for them? Or do you think you made the right decision, and why?
Well, fortunately, and I am very fortunate when I say this, I made the absolute right decision because at the end it was very toxic for both me and my ex-husband and for the kids to see. And I didn't want my sons growing up to see that as the way that women should be treated. So as hard as it was putting four little kids in a car and leaving and starting new with only a high school degree,
Mm-hmm.
and being terrified that I wasn't going to be able to support them, I did, knowing that my children's outcomes on life and the decision I was making then was going to change the way that they grew up and the pattern in their lives.
Mm. That's beautiful. That so you know the decision that you made to leave your husband was actually a decision you made for your children so that they would have a better life and so that your sons, your three sons would grow up respecting women.
Absolutely.
And yeah, that is so important.
And you know, it's not always that easy for everyone. And when I say cat, it was terrifying. I had four little kids. I had a high school degree. I didn't know what I was going to do or how I was going to do it. But I could see it starting to affect my older two sons, and I wasn't going to have that. It just
Mhm.
wasn't going to happen. You know, sometimes your fear, it actually helps you in the end. I mean, sometimes the biggest leaps we take are so terrifying, but they're the most important.
Yes, yes. So let's fast forward a little bit now. You've left your husband and you know, coming from the military myself, I was a military brat. I would see my dad be gone for 6 months
Right?
and come home where my mom had been in charge. She had been running the house and suddenly she would have to step back and let him be the king of the home and, you know, swallow her pride where she was running everything. And it was very, very hard. I don't know how she did it. But you know, they made it work, but that's not for everybody. Not everybody can do that, and not every man is able to adjust to the fact that he's been gone that long. So in your case, you had a very special case, but like many other women who are listening to this show right now, you made the decision you made for the betterment of your children, and that is what I applaud you on.
And thank you.
So let's talk now. You left your husband, and you moved in with your parents, right?
Yeah, we moved into two rooms in my parents' house. It was my four kids, myself, and our dog, actually. And and my parents were wonderful and generous and very helpful, but it was not an ideal situation. I mean, my parents were older, and I'm walking in with four kids and a dog. They were used to their lifestyle, just them at this point. So I immediately thought, oh my gosh, I got to get a job, and I have to find a place for us. And that's what started me on my quest.
Hmm. And I'm sure that there are a lot of parents who are listening right now who have had their daughter move back in with their children because she's going through divorce. So if there's one thing that you could tell them, one piece of advice or a tidbit, a golden nugget to help them get through this difficult time, what would it be?
Remember, you're the parent of your children. Don't overstay your welcome and don't expect your parents to parent your children. And I see that a lot in a lot of letters I get from people. When you move back in, and there I know many scenarios or cases where people have had their children come back home. That does not enable them to be your babysitter. That does not obligate them to be watching your children, providing for your children, feeding your children, clothing your children. You're still the parent of that child, and you need to take that responsibility seriously and not push it off on your parents because you're in a better position.
Hmm. And so, should the parents, what should your parents, or if you're living at the home, what is the one advice you would give to them as far as having their child move back in with them?
Well, make sure it's a short term. Figure out a plan. Don't bring it in like, okay, you're coming and you're going to live here. No. Figure out a plan, have a plan in place. Say within a year, you're going to be on your own. If you have to help them rent something, if you have to help them find something, help them. But make sure there's a plan for them to move on, for them to better themselves, and for them to become stable and self-reliant. That's very, very important.
Oh, you're right. That is extremely important. So now you're going out. You're living at home. You've got your 4 children and the dog in a small home with your parents, and you're going out to get food stamps. Tell us what happened.
So my father says, you should get food stamps, which I most certainly should. So I went down to the local food stamp office, and I filled out the papers, and the woman comes up to me and with my papers, and she looks at me, she says, well, your car is a 19, and I don't even remember what it is. And I said, yes, that's the car I took when I left. That was when my divorce. She said, no, that car's too new. By law, you can't have a car that new and get food stamps. You need to get another car and then come back for food stamps. And I thought, that is the most ridiculous. And of course, I never got food stamps. I was so angry at that whole statement that if there's one thing I could change in the law in New Jersey, that would be it. No matter what the hell car you had. I mean, a reliable car to get to work, and you have to change it so you can get, no, that wasn't happening. So I just decided, no, that's not happening, and I'm just going to make it work.
And then you met an earth angel.
Yes. I was working at a restaurant as a waitress and a bartender for a long time because the hours were great. I could be home when the kids were home during the day, then work in the evening when they were sleeping. They'd be sleeping. My parents could watch them. And a woman came in, and I was telling her of my struggles finding something to rent. We have 4 kids and a dog. It's difficult to find something to rent. And the prices were extremely expensive. And this wonderful woman said to me, have you ever heard of the Displaced Homemakers program? So I said, no. She told me about it. I went there, and it was so funny because you filled out paperwork after paperwork after paperwork, proving your income week in, week out, and month in, month out. And when I got there, I was like number 356. And the woman was like, okay, you're number 356. We'll let you know we have a loan for you from the government, 0% interest. Well, I waited for the first week or 2, and it didn't go anywhere. So I started calling every single day. And I'd call and I'd say, hi, it's me. What number am I? And they'd be like, okay, you're number 354. And then you're number 2 something. And all of a sudden, within weeks, I'm dropping. They just got so tired of me calling that, but one day I called, and they're like, surprise, you're number 1. You get the loan. Come on in. Besides the fact that I stuck it out for the months and filled out mountains and mountains of paperwork for them.
Yeah, you always have to file, all that paperwork. It's just amazing. So now tell us about One Tough Muther. That's Muther from New Jersey. Mother.
Yep, that's so right. You got a perfect cat. So through my years, I worked at a radio station once we bought our home. And I've been in radio a long time. I became the in-house agency for a very large company. So for 23 years, I was the in-house agency and marketing and advertising agent for a very large company. And
can you tell us what the company is or no?
No, I'd rather not if you don't.
Okay.
Yes. So
okay.
It was sports nutrition. So I worked with Arnold Schwarzenegger and all the bodybuilders, NASCAR, many, many people in the country. And it was a wonderful, wonderful job, amazing opportunities. I was invited to the Grammys, to Super Bowls. I was all over the place. I ran NASCAR programs for 5 years. It was a lot of fun. And it was sports, something I really enjoyed. But I started One Tough Mother on the kind of like the joke of my kids, because everywhere I'd go throughout my life, people would ask me, can you help me? Or I have a question, or can I ask you something? And my kids would be like, why do people always come up and ask you things? We don't get it. And I didn't get it either, quite frankly. And I used to say, I just have that face, like that face that people feel they can trust. Well, one day we were in a store, and we were actually at the beach, and my son said to me, this woman came and asked me something. He goes, I can't believe even away at the beach, somebody's going to ask you something. He goes, they ought to know what a tough mother you really were when we were growing up. So I coined the name. I went home and trademarked it. And they said, I have an advice column. People want to ask your advice on so much. So as a hobby, I started an advice column, thinking nothing of it. Thinking, okay, I'm going to start this little website. It costs me like $100. I have this advice column. It'll be kind of fun. It'll be a little hobby. Well, in going into like a few months, some internet guru went and found my advice column and coined me as Dear Abby on steroids. And the next thing I know, because I was getting good old-fashioned motherly advice that I'd give you or any one of my friends, the next thing I know, I'm into hundreds and thousands of letters come pouring in, and I'm up until 2, 3, 4 o'clock at night and doing a 14-hour a day traveling job to try to answer these letters because it was so important that these people needed help and I needed to help them. Well, about a year and a half into it, my site was hacked because it was only a $100 site. I lost thousands of letters and I thought, well, okay, I'm not going to do it again. But then I felt so badly that these people would be looking for me. I bought another site and I started again. And from there, it just escalated. And I was actually published in magazines. I was on a lot of interviews, television, radio. So it just became crazy, crazy fun.
Oh, so how can our audience find you and find your site that is not the one that got hacked?
Well, right now, I don't do the advice column. You can write me for advice, but you write to my show. So
Okay, how would they do that?
You would go to One Tough Muther with a U, MUTHER, because you don't have to be a mother to be one tough mother. It's all about you. So
it's all in the attitude.
Yes, it's all in the attitude. It's all about you. So you go to onetoughmother.com and it says write the One Tough Mother show and you write your question to me. I get letters. I was just working on my show for tomorrow and I get tons of letters and I pick 3 letters and we read them on our show and we answer them.
Wonderful. Well, Karen Finocchio, thank you so much for being on the show with us tonight. This was great. We'd love to have you come back and tell us some more of your story sometime.
Oh, thank you so much, Kat, and thank you for trying again.
Good night, everybody. It was great having Karen Finocchio back on, and see you next week.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.